Hi, I'm Martina, and today I will show you how you can build a kitchen garden. And by kitchen garden I mean a space where you can grow all your vegetables, your fruits, herbs, berries, well, anything you can grow really. And you can build all of it in a couple of hours by using pallet collars. And these are pallet collars. They are very common in Scandinavia, but can be a little tricky to find here. I was so happy when I found them at Corker's. And when you buy them, you want to make sure that they have got a HT sign on them. That means heat treated. And you want that because you don't want them to be chemically treated when you grow food in them. So that's very important to look out for. I will be using this area over here, which is a bit problematic because of these big trees. When you create beds anywhere near big trees, they will eventually figure out where the water and nutrition is coming from, and they send up their roots into the beds, even if you have raised beds. So I will be putting down a weed membrane to stop this. I have now put the weed membrane down. I've used 2 pieces, and if you do that, it's important that you overlap them a bit, maybe this much or a bit more, just so that you don't get a gap later on, because they move slightly under. I will now arrange my pallet collars the way I would like them. I prefer to have 2, so one on top of the other, because I want the depth of the soil. Mainly because I am growing a lot of different types of vegetables, and some would not be so happy in just a single pallet collar because it wouldn't be deep enough, especially not as I have got the weed membrane underneath. If you haven't got the weed membrane, then you can utilize the soil underneath, so you may get away with just having 1. I prefer to have 2 stacked like this. You can get really creative with your designs. You can overlap them or even create them in a diamond shape, for an example. When you create your kitchen garden, you want to think about where you place it, because you want to have as many sun hours as possible. So I have got the sun going up on this side in the morning, down on that side, which means that in the morning these trees will shade part of the kitchen garden, but then for the rest of the day it will be full sun. So that's great. So make sure that you get as many sun hours as possible. That is really number 1 for your kitchen garden to thrive. Another thing to think about is the wind. If you can try and create shelter for your kitchen garden, that can make all the difference, especially if you want to have a long growing season. For an example, this year we had 1 night of light frost really early on, and all the plants on the southwest corner died, because that's where the wind is coming from in my garden. So if you can create shelter by, for an example, placing your garden so you have a fence or trees or maybe a hedge, or create something that shelters the side where the wind tends to come from, that can make all the difference. So for me, the rest of the plants in the kitchen garden could keep on growing for another month before I had the second frost. So if I would have had a fence or something to protect the plants on that most exposed site, they would have survived another month. So this is all great, but if you haven't got the ideal spot for a kitchen garden, you should still create it. It doesn't matter. You will be able to grow so much food in a space like this, even if you have got no shelter, like me, on the southwest side, because you can also put your most tender plants on the other side, protect them with hardier plants, for an example. So just choose the best spot in your garden, and then you will be able to grow so much. I will be filling these pallet collars with Corker's topsoil and green compost, but I will also show you how you can make use of what you have got available in your garden. For an example, garden waste like weeds or grass clippings, leaves, whatever you have got. And I will be putting that in this one over here. And I will also put horse manure in this one over here, and then fill up with soil and compost. The ones in the back I will put topsoil and compost in. I have got a pile over here of weeds and grass and anything I have cleared from other beds, and I will be using this and put it in the bottom of this pallet collar. I have now filled this pallet collar about halfway up with the garden waste that I had available, and I'm standing on top of it because it's important that you pack it down as much as you can. If you have got kids, it's great to get them to jump on it, otherwise you have to move around on it yourself. Once you've packed it down, you may want to put a layer of newspaper on top, or cardboard if you have got that, because if you have got green waste or weeds, or if you have got things that have gone to seed, the seeds may be in there and they might germinate, and you have the weeds growing up through the nice topsoil and compost you put on top. It's probably unlikely, but it's just a precaution. I like to wet the newspaper first, just because then it's a bit more snug and easy to put on. Also make sure that you remove the staples, because you don't want that in your kitchen garden. This pallet collar I'm going to fill about halfway up with horse manure. It's great to improve the soil structure, and it also provides a lot of nutrients to the soil and the plants. However, if you do use horse manure, you have to make sure you know where it's from and what the horses have been eating. There is a problem with a weed killer that is sprayed onto grass that's taken for hay, and the active ingredient is called aminopyrrolide, and for some reason it does not break down when it passes through the horse, so it will still be in the horse manure, and if you get that into your vegetable garden, it will stop the plants from growing or kill them. And it takes roughly about a year before it's broken down in the soil and you can use it again. So if you use horse manure, do your research. Other manure, like cow manure, tends to be less dangerous to use for some reason. But I know that this is safe, so I will be filling it about halfway up. As with the garden waste, it's important to pack it down. But even though you pack it down now, it will sink down even further. So in a few months' time, you may need to top up the soil. Over here we have got Corker's premium topsoil and Corker's green compost, and I will be using these to fill the pallet collars. I have now put Corker's premium topsoil in here. It's a perfectly balanced mix between sandy loam and compost, and it will provide all the nutrients that the plants will need for a long time. I will also put a layer of green compost on top of here as a mulch. Mulching is great to suppress weeds, and it also protects plants both in the winter and the summer from extreme temperatures. Also in the summer, if you have got a layer of mulch, it will retain the moisture in the soil, which will effectively reduce the need for watering. So I will now put about 5 centimeters of compost on here. Corker's green compost is made out of recycled garden waste, which makes it very sustainable. It's full of nutrients, but it also promotes good drainage, which is very important for plants, because if the soil is too compact, then effectively the plant will suffocate. It can't get oxygen. So because of that, I have also mixed in a bit of extra compost in the pallet collar, but I'm finishing off all of the pallet collars with the green compost on top as a mulch. I'm now going to put Corker's bark down in all the parts around the pallet collars. It will make it look very nice. But bark can also be used to suppress weeds or grass if you haven't got a weed membrane underneath. It can also be used as a mulch if you like. But if you want to find out more about all the products we have used today to build this pallet collar garden, you can go to corkers.co.uk. If you want to follow me, you find me on Instagram and YouTube at Simply Grow Food, and also on simplygrowfood.co.uk. We are going to follow this pallet collar garden throughout the seasons and show you just how much food you can grow in a kitchen garden like this. So make sure you subscribe, and I see you in the next one.